The day Janet walked back into my life. She wasn't smiling like she used to. No, this time her face was pale, hands trembling as she stood in the doorway of the conference room where I now sat at the head of the table. The same table her father used to sit at. The same chair she once told me I would never be good enough to occupy. I leaned back, fingers interlaced, watching her struggle to find words. It had been 7 years since she rejected me. 7 years since she laughed at my proposal, called me ordinary, and walked away with a man who drove a car worth more than my entire year's salary. 7 years since she told me I lacked ambition, that I would never amount to anything, that she needed someone who could give her the life she deserved. And now, here she was, standing in front of me. Not as the confident, untouchable woman who once shattered my heart, but as someone desperate. Someone afraid. Her family's empire was collapsing. The business her grandfather built, her father expanded, and her brother nearly destroyed was drowning in debt, bad decisions, and scandal. And in their moment of crisis, when they needed someone capable, someone trustworthy, someone who actually understood the core of their operations, they didn't turn to her. They didn't turn to Michael, the slick businessman she had chosen over me. They didn't even turn to her own brother. They turned to me. Janet's father had called me personally. He remembered me from the days I worked in their company as a junior analyst, back when Janet and I were still together, back when I was just another face in the crowd. But he also remembered something else. He remembered that I was the one who flagged the accounting discrepancies no one else caught. I was the one who restructured their supply chain and saved them millions. I was the one who stayed late, worked weekends, and genuinely cared about the company's success, not because I was chasing a promotion, but because I believed in doing things right. So when everything fell apart, when the board demanded accountability and the family needed someone they could trust, my name came up. And I said yes. Not for them. Not for Janet. But for myself. Because the boy she rejected had grown into a man she could no longer ignore. And now, watching her stand there, eyes glistening with barely concealed panic, I realized something. Revenge doesn't always require a plan. Sometimes, life hands it to you on a silver platter. My name is Jimmy. 7 years ago, I was nobody special. Just another guy working a decent job, trying to build a future, hoping that hard work and sincerity would be enough. I met Janet during my first year at Harrison Enterprises, the family-owned conglomerate that dominated the logistics and manufacturing industry in the state. She was the founder's granddaughter, beautiful, sharp, and completely out of my league, or so everyone said. But somehow, we connected. Maybe it was because I didn't treat her like a princess. I didn't fawn over her family name or try to use her for connections. I just saw her as Janet. A woman who loved classic movies, who laughed at terrible jokes, who sometimes felt suffocated by the weight of her family's expectations. We started spending time together. Coffee breaks turned into dinners. Dinners turned into late-night conversations. And before I knew it, I was in love. For 2 years, we were together. She would sneak out of company events to meet me. We would drive to the coast on weekends, sit by the water, and talk about everything and nothing. She told me she felt free with me, that I made her feel like a normal person, not just an heiress trapped in a glass tower. I believed her. I thought what we had was real. I was 26 when I decided to propose. I had saved for months to buy a ring. Nothing extravagant, but honest. Something that represented my feelings. My commitment. My promise to build a life with her. I planned it carefully. A quiet restaurant, just the two of us. Her favorite dish. Candlelight. The works. But when I got down on one knee and opened that box, her expression didn't light up with joy. It froze. She stared at the ring, then at me, and for a long, horrible moment, she said nothing. Then she laughed. Not a happy laugh. A nervous, almost pitying laugh. "Jimmy," she said softly, "what are you doing?" "I am proposing," I replied, heart pounding. "I love you, Janet. I want to spend my life with you." She shook her head slowly, as if waking from a dream. "Jimmy, you are a good guy. You really are. But this, us, it was never going to work." I felt the ground shift beneath me. "What do you mean?" She sighed, setting down her fork, avoiding my eyes. "I need someone who can match my world. Someone with ambition, with vision. Someone who is going somewhere. You are comfortable, Jimmy. You are safe. But I cannot spend my life being safe. I need more than that." Her words hit like a hammer. I stood there, ring still in hand, feeling smaller than I ever had in my life. "So that is it," I said quietly. "I am not enough." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I really am. But yes. You are not enough." 2 months later, I saw her at a company gala. She was on the arm of Michael Chen, a venture capitalist with a Rolex, a penthouse, and a resume that screamed success. He was everything I wasn't: polished, connected, wealthy. And she looked happy. Or at least, she looked the part. I quit Harrison Enterprises a week later. Not because I couldn't handle seeing her, but because I refused to be a ghost in a building where I once believed I had a future. I took a job with a smaller firm, one that focused on corporate restructuring and operational strategy. I worked like a man possessed. 16-hour days. Weekends. Holidays. I devoured knowledge, earned certifications. Built a reputation. I stopped being the guy who was good enough. I became the guy people called when everything was falling apart. And then, 7 years later, I got the call. Mr. Jimmy, this is Gregory Harrison. I need to speak with you urgently. It is about the company. I almost didn't take the meeting. But curiosity got the better of me. So I went. And what I learned shocked me. Harrison Enterprises was a mess. Janet's brother, Thomas, had taken over operations 3 years prior and had made one disastrous decision after another. Overextended credit lines. Failed acquisitions. A logistics scandal involving delayed shipments and penalties that cost them millions. The board was furious. Investors were pulling out. The family was fracturing. Gregory Harrison, now in his 70s, looked exhausted. Jimmy, he said, his voice heavy, I remember you. You were one of the brightest analysts we ever had. I made a mistake letting you go. I did not let him finish. You did not let me go, I said. I left. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. But I am asking you now. Come back. Help us fix this. I trust you. The board trusts you. We need someone who knows this company and is not tangled in family politics. I studied him carefully. And what makes you think I would say yes? He leaned forward, desperation in his eyes. Because despite everything, I know you cared about this company. And because I am willing to give you full operational control. No interference. No second guessing. You fix this, and you will have a seat on the board. Equity. A future here. I thought about it for exactly 5 seconds. Then I said, I want it in writing. He smiled for the first time that day. Done. That was 3 months ago. Since then, I had torn through every department, restructured teams, renegotiated contracts, and stopped the bleeding. The company was stabilizing. Slowly. Painfully. But it was working. And throughout all of it, I had not seen Janet once. She had been abroad. Handling some partnership deal in Europe. Conveniently far from the chaos. Until today. Today, she returned. And today. She walked into the conference room and saw me sitting in her father's chair. The look on her face was worth every sleepless night I had endured to get here. Janet stood frozen in the doorway, her designer handbag sliding off her shoulder. Her eyes darted from me to the other executives seated around the table, as if searching for confirmation that this was some kind of mistake. Mr. Jimmy was just updating us on the third quarter projections. Gregory said calmly from the far end of the table. Janet, you are late. She blinked, composing herself quickly. I was not informed that Mr. Jimmy would be, she paused, leading this meeting. Gregory's expression remained neutral. Mr. Jimmy is now our chief restructuring officer. He reports directly to me and the board. All major operational decisions go through him. I watched her jaw tighten. She forced a smile and took the empty seat across from me. Of course. My apologies. I just was not expecting this. Expecting what? I asked, keeping my tone even. She met my eyes for the first time. Nothing, she said quickly. It is good to see you, Jimmy. Likewise, I replied. Then turned back to the presentation without another glance. I could feel her staring at me. But I did not give her the satisfaction of acknowledgement. The meeting continued. I walked them through cost-cutting measures, revised logistics protocols, and a new vendor audit system. Every point I made was sharp, backed by data, and undeniable. Gregory nodded approvingly. The other executives took notes. Janet said nothing. But I could see her hands gripping the edge of the table, knuckles pale. When the meeting ended, everyone filed out except her. She lingered, pretending to review something on her phone. I packed up my laptop, ignoring her. Finally, she spoke. Jimmy, can we talk? I glanced up. About what? About this. Us. You being here. I closed my laptop slowly. There is no us. Janet, there has not been for 7 years. And I am here because your father hired me. That is all there is to it. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. I know things ended badly between us, but I cut her off. Badly. You called me ordinary. You said I was not ambitious enough. You laughed at my proposal and walked away. That is not ending badly. That is ending exactly as you wanted it to. Her face flushed. I was young. Jimmy. I made a mistake, but you cannot seriously hold that against me forever. I smiled coldly. I am not holding anything against you. I am just doing my job. Now if you will excuse me, I have work to do. I walked past her, but she grabbed my arm. Please, she whispered. Do not be like this. I turned to face her fully. Like what? Professional. Focused. Successful. Isn't that what you wanted, Janet? Someone with ambition. Someone going somewhere. Well, here I am. Her eyes glistened, but I felt nothing. She let go. And I walked out. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Clara, Janet's younger cousin and the company's marketing director. We had worked together briefly during my first stint at Harrison Enterprises, and she had always been kind to me. The text read, "Heard Janet ran into you today. She is freaking out. Just thought you should know. Be careful. She does not like being out of control." I smiled at the screen and typed back, "Thanks for the heads up." Then I set my phone down and got back to work. Because the truth was, I did not care if Janet was freaking out. I did not care if she felt uncomfortable, blindsided, or powerless. For 7 years, I had lived with the weight of her rejection, the sting of being told I was not enough. And now, for the first time, the tables had turned. But what I did not know yet was that Janet was not the kind of person who accepted powerlessness quietly. And her panic was not just about seeing me again. It was about something much bigger, something she had been hiding, something that, if it came to light, would destroy her completely. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself deeper into the company's restructuring. Every day brought new challenges. Resistant department heads, vendor disputes, employee morale issues. But I handled them all with a calm, calculated precision that earned me respect across the board. Gregory Harrison publicly praised my work in a company-wide email. The board voted to extend my contract and increase my authority. But the more power I gained, the more I felt Janet's presence lurking at the edges. She started showing up to meetings she had never attended before. She would ask pointed questions, challenge my recommendations, and try to undermine my decisions in subtle ways. It was obvious what she was doing. She was trying to reassert control, to remind everyone that she was a Harrison, and I was just an outsider. It did not work. Because unlike her, I had done my homework. Every argument she made, I countered with data. Every concern she raised, I had already addressed. She could not touch me professionally. But that did not stop her from trying personally. One evening, as I was leaving the office, I found her waiting by my car. "Jimmy," she called out, walking toward me. "We need to talk." I unlocked my car. "No, we do not." She blocked the driver's side door. "Yes. We do. You are shutting me out, and I do not understand why." I stared at her, genuinely baffled. "You do not understand why." She crossed her arms defensively. "I made a mistake 7 years ago. I admit that. But you are acting like I committed some unforgivable crime. We were kids, Jimmy. People change." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "You are right. People do change. I changed. I became the man you said I could never be. And now that I am, you cannot stand it." Her eyes flashed with anger. "That is not fair." I stepped closer, voice low but firm. "You want to talk about fair, Janet? You broke my heart. You made me feel worthless. And now, when I finally have something you cannot control, you want me to just... what? Pretend it never happened. Play nice. Act like we are old friends." She opened her mouth, then closed it, tears welling up. I thought maybe we could start over." I shook my head slowly. "There is nothing to start over. You made your choice. Live with it." I got in my car and drove away, leaving her standing there in the parking lot. But as I drove, I did not feel victorious. I felt hollow. Because the truth was, seeing her hurt still affected me. Not because I wanted her back. But because some part of me, the part that once loved her, still remembered what it felt like to be vulnerable. To hope. To believe that love could be enough. That night, I barely slept. My mind replayed our conversation over and over. And for the first time, since I had taken this job, I wondered if I had made a mistake. Not professionally. But emotionally. Because being around Janet every day, watching her struggle with the reality that I was no longer the boy she rejected, was exhausting. It dredged up feelings I thought I had buried. The next morning, Clara stopped by my office. She knocked lightly and peeked in. "Got a minute?" I waved her in. She closed the door behind her and sat down, looking unusually serious. "I heard you and Janet had another run-in last night." "Word travels fast," I muttered. She nodded. "Jimmy, I like you. I always have. You were good to Janet, and she threw it away. But I need to tell you something, and I need you to keep it between us. I leaned forward. I am listening. Clara hesitated, then said quietly, Janet is not just upset because you are here. She is upset because she is in trouble. Big trouble. My pulse quickened. What kind of trouble? Clara glanced at the door, then back at me. Michael, the guy she left you for. He is not who everyone thinks he is. His venture capital firm is a front. He has been using it to launder money. And Janet, she got involved. Not knowingly at first, but once she found out, she did not walk away. She helped him move assets, hide transactions. If it comes out, she could face serious legal consequences. I sat back, stunned. Does Gregory know? Clara shook her head. No one knows except me. And now you. She is terrified that with you digging into every corner of this company, you will find the trail. Because some of the transactions ran through Harrison Enterprises accounts. My mind raced. That is why she has been so hostile. She is not trying to undermine me. She is trying to protect herself. Clara nodded. Exactly. And Jimmy, if you keep digging, you will find it. I guarantee it. I stared at my desk, processing everything. Then I looked up at Clara. Why are you telling me this? She met my eyes steadily. Because you deserve to know what you are walking into. And because Janet made her choices. You should not be blindsided by them. After Clara left, I sat alone in my office for a long time. The company I was trying to save was hiding rot deeper than I had imagined. And the woman who once broke my heart was at the center of it. I could walk away. Report what I knew to Gregory and let the chips fall. Or I could dig deeper, uncover the full truth, and decide what to do with it. Either way, my life was about to get a lot more complicated. I spent the next 2 days quietly combing through financial records. I did not tell anyone what I was looking for, not even Clara. I just requested access to archived transaction logs under the guise of conducting a comprehensive audit. The accounting department complied without question. After all, I was the chief restructuring officer. This was exactly the kind of work they expected me to do. What I found made my blood run cold. Over the past 3 years, Harrison Enterprises had processed a series of unusually large wire transfers to offshore accounts. The transactions were buried in routine operational expenses, disguised as vendor payments and consulting fees. But when I cross-referenced the receiving entities, none of them had any legitimate business relationship with Harrison Enterprises. They were shell companies. And every single one of them traced back to Michael Chen's network. Janet's digital signature approved half of them. The other half were authorized by Thomas, her brother. But the pattern was clear. Money was being funneled out of the company, laundered through Michael's network, and likely split between the three of them. It was not just unethical. It was criminal. I sat back in my chair, staring at the evidence on my screen. This was bigger than I had imagined. And if I reported it, the fallout would be catastrophic. Not just for Janet and Thomas, but for the entire Harrison family. Gregory would be devastated. The company's reputation would be destroyed. Investors would flee. Employees would lose their jobs. But if I stayed silent, I would be complicit. And everything I had worked for, the integrity, the trust Gregory had placed in me, would mean nothing. I was still debating my next move when my office door flew open. Janet stormed in. Her face flushed with anger. She slammed the door behind her and marched straight up to my desk. What the hell do you think you are doing? She hissed. I kept my expression neutral. My job. She leaned over the desk, eyes blazing. You requested access to the archived financial records. Why? Because I am conducting an audit. It is part of my mandate. Her hands shook. You are looking for something. I know you are. And I want you to stop. I stood up slowly, meeting her gaze. Or what? Her jaw clenched. Or you will regret it. I let out a cold laugh. Is that a threat, Janet? She did not back down. Call it whatever you want. But if you keep digging, you are going to destroy this company. And my family. I walked around the desk until I was standing right in front of her. Your family is destroying itself. I am just uncovering the truth. She shook her head frantically. You do not understand. This is not what it looks like. Then explain it to me, I said evenly. Tell me why millions of dollars were transferred to shell companies connected to Michael Chen. Tell me why your signature is on half of those approvals. Her face went pale. I was trying to help Thomas. He got in over his head. And Michael said he could fix it. I did not know what he was really doing until it was too late. By then, I was already implicated. If I had said anything, I would have gone down with them. So you just kept quiet, I said. Kept approving transactions. Kept lying. She looked away, tears streaming down her face. I did not have a choice. You always have a choice, Janet. You just made the wrong one. She grabbed my arm, desperate now. Jimmy, please. If you report this, it will destroy everything. My father will lose the company. Thomas will go to jail. I will lose everything. Please. For what we once had. Do not do this. I pulled my arm free. What we once had. You threw that away, remember? She sobbed openly now, her composure completely shattered. I know. I know I hurt you. But please, I am begging you. Do not let your anger at me destroy innocent people. I turned away from her, staring out the window. Innocent people. Your father built this company with integrity. Your employees trusted this family. And you and Thomas betrayed all of them. She sank into a chair, burying her face in her hands. I know. God, I know. But it is too late to fix it. If you expose this, it is over. For all of us. I stood there in silence, torn between duty and something I could not quite name. Finally, I spoke without turning around. Get out of my office, Janet. She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. Does that mean? It means I need to think, I said firmly. Now, leave. She hesitated, then stood and walked to the door. Before she left, she turned back one last time. Jimmy, I really am sorry. For everything. I did not respond. She closed the door softly behind her. I stood there alone, the weight of what I had discovered pressing down on me like a physical force. That evening, I called Clara. I told her everything I had found. She listened in silence, and when I finished, she let out a long breath. So what are you going to do? She asked. I do not know, I admitted. If I report it, the company collapses. If I do not, I am covering up a crime. Clara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Jimmy, I know you are a good person. But you did not cause this. Janet and Thomas did. If there are consequences, they brought them on themselves. You do not owe them your silence. I know, I said. But it is not just about them. It is about Gregory. About the employees. About everything this company represents. Clara sighed. Then maybe you need to ask yourself what you really want. Is this about justice? Or is it about something else? I frowned. What do you mean? She hesitated, then said gently, is this about punishing Janet? Because if it is, you need to be honest with yourself about that. Her words hit harder than I expected. I sat there in the dark, phone pressed to my ear, and realized she was right. Part of me wanted to see Janet face consequences. Not out of cruelty, but because I needed to know that actions had meaning. That betrayal, whether in love or in business, could not just be swept under the rug. But another part of me, the part that still remembered loving her, hesitated. Because once I pulled this thread, there would be no going back. And I was not sure I was ready for that. Not yet. I will figure it out, I told Clara. Thanks for listening. Anytime, she said softly. Just, be careful, Jimmy. This is bigger than you think. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of my apartment, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I would have to make a choice. And whatever I decided, it would change everything. I did not sleep that night. By the time the sun rose, I had made my decision. I was not going to bury the evidence. But I was not going to hand it over to the authorities blindly, either. Instead, I was going to do something more strategic. I was going to confront the people responsible and give them a chance to make things right. Not for their sake, but for the sake of everyone else who would suffer if this exploded publicly. I scheduled an emergency meeting for 9 in the morning. I did not tell anyone what it was about. I just sent calendar invites to Gregory, Janet, Thomas, and Clara. The subject line read, Urgent Company Matter. Attendance mandatory. When I walked into the conference room, they were all already there. Gregory sat at the head of the table, looking concerned. Thomas lounged in his chair with an air of annoyed indifference. Clara sat quietly off to the side, her expression unreadable. And Janet. She looked like she had not slept either. Her eyes were red, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Thank you all for coming, I said, closing the door behind me. I know this was short notice, but what I am about to share cannot wait. Gregory leaned forward. What is this about, Jimmy? I opened my laptop and connected it to the conference room screen. A spreadsheet appeared, rows and rows of transactions highlighted in red. Over the past 3 years, I began, Harrison Enterprises has transferred over $12 million to a network of offshore shell companies. These transactions were disguised as operational expenses, but they were not. They were part of a money laundering scheme orchestrated by Michael Chen. The room went dead silent. Gregory's face drained of color. Thomas sat up straight, his arrogance evaporating. Janet closed her eyes, as if bracing for impact. I continued, voice steady. These transactions were approved by 2 people. Thomas Harrison and Janet Harrison. Both of their digital signatures are on file. Both of them knew what they were doing. That is a lie. Thomas snapped. Standing up. I clicked to the next slide. Here is your approval for a $2.3 million transfer to a company called Apex Global Consulting. It does not exist, Thomas. It is a shell. Just like the other 15 you signed off on. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. I turned to Janet. And you approved 8 transfers totaling over $5 million. You told me yesterday that you were trying to help Thomas. But the evidence shows you were complicit from the start. Tears spilled down her face, but she said nothing. Gregory finally found his voice. Is this true? His words were barely a whisper. Thomas looked away. Janet nodded slowly, her voice breaking. Yes, it is true. Gregory aged 10 years in that moment. His shoulders sagged, and for the first time since I had known him, he looked truly defeated. How could you, he whispered. Both of you. How could you do this to our family? To this company? Janet sobbed openly. Daddy, I am so sorry. We never meant for it to go this far. Michael said he could help us. He said. Gregory slammed his hand on the table, the sound echoing like a gunshot. I do not care what Michael said. You are a Harrison. You had a responsibility. And you threw it away. Thomas finally spoke, his voice hollow. So what now? You are going to turn us in. Everyone looked at me. I met Gregory's eyes first. That depends on you, sir. Gregory frowned. What do you mean? I took a breath. If this goes public, the company will not survive. The scandal alone will destroy investor confidence. Employees will lose their jobs. Your family's legacy will be ruined. But if we handle this internally, there is a chance to contain the damage and make things right. Gregory stared at me. What are you proposing? I looked at Thomas and Janet. First, both of you resign from the company effective immediately. No severance. No benefits. You walk away quietly. Second, you work with me and the legal team to recover every dollar that was stolen. That means cooperating fully, providing access to accounts, and testifying if needed against Michael Chen. Thomas scoffed. You want us to rat out Michael? He will destroy us. Then you should have thought of that before you got into bed with him. I said coldly. Third, you sign agreements acknowledging your wrongdoing and waiving any future claims to the company. If you do all of this, I will recommend to Gregory that we handle this internally and keep law enforcement out of it. For now. Janet looked up, hope flickering in her tear-streaked eyes. And if we refuse? Then I turn all of this over to the district attorney this afternoon, I said flatly. And you can explain yourselves to a judge. The room fell silent again. Finally, Gregory spoke. Do it. His voice was hard, final. Both of you. Do exactly what Jimmy says, or I will hand you over myself. Thomas looked stunned. Dad, you cannot be serious. Gregory's eyes blazed. You stole from this family. Thomas. You betrayed everything I built. You are lucky Jimmy is offering you a way out. Take it. Or face the consequences. Thomas looked at me with pure hatred, but he nodded stiffly. Fine. Janet just whispered, I will do whatever it takes. Good, I said. Clara. Can you draft the resignation letters and agreements? Clara nodded. I will have them ready by end of day. I turned back to Gregory. Sir, I will need your full support to see this through. The board cannot know the details yet. We need to frame the resignations as voluntary. For personal reasons. Once we have recovered the funds and secured cooperation, we can decide how much to disclose. Gregory nodded slowly. You have my support, Jimmy. Do what needs to be done. Over the next 3 hours, Clara and I worked with the company's legal counsel to draft airtight agreements. By noon, Thomas and Janet had signed everything. Their resignations were announced internally as a mutual decision to pursue other opportunities. No one questioned it. By the end of the week, they were gone. But the real work was just beginning. With their cooperation, I traced the money through Michael's network. It was not easy. He had buried it under layers of shell companies, fake invoices, and international transfers. But piece by piece, I unraveled it. And what I found shocked me. Michael had not just stolen from Harrison Enterprises. He had been running the same scheme with 3 other companies. He was a professional con artist, and Janet and Thomas had been his pawns. 2 months later, with all the evidence compiled, I handed everything over to the FBI. Michael was arrested at his penthouse. The news broke nationally. Venture capitalist, arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. Janet and Thomas, true to their agreement, cooperated fully. They were granted immunity in exchange for their testimony. Michael, on the other hand, was facing decades in prison. Through it all, Janet tried to reach out to me. Texts, emails, even a handwritten letter delivered to my apartment. Each one begged for forgiveness, for understanding, for a chance to explain. I never responded. Because the truth was, there was nothing left to say. She had made her choices, and now she had to live with them. 6 months after the scandal broke, Harrison Enterprises was stable again. Investor confidence had been restored. The board had promoted me to chief operating officer, and Gregory had privately told me he was grooming me to take over as CEO when he retired. It was everything I had worked for. Everything Janet once said I would never achieve. But the victory felt hollow. Not because I regretted what I had done. I did not. Michael deserved to be in prison. Thomas and Janet deserved to face consequences. But standing at the top, looking down at everything I had built, I realized something. Revenge had not healed me. It had just filled the space where pain used to be with something colder. Something emptier. One evening, as I was leaving the office, I found Clara waiting by my car. Again. I smiled tiredly. This is becoming a habit. She shrugged. Someone has to make sure you are okay. I unlocked the car but did not get in. I am fine, Clara. Really? She studied me for a moment, then said quietly. No, you are not. You are exhausted. Jimmy, you have been running on fumes for months. When is the last time you did something for yourself? Not for the company. Not to prove a point. Just for you. I did not have an answer. She stepped closer. You won. You saved the company. You brought down the bad guys. But you are still carrying all of this, like it is your burden alone. It is not. You are allowed to let go. Her words hit harder than I expected. I leaned against the car. Suddenly feeling the weight of the past year crash down on me. I thought it would feel different, I admitted. Winning. I thought I would feel. I do not know, satisfied. Vindicated. But I just feel tired. Clara nodded. That is because revenge is not the same as healing. Jimmy, you got justice, but you have not let yourself move on. I looked at her. How do I do that? She smiled gently. You start by forgiving yourself. For loving her. For believing in her. For being hurt. None of that was your fault. I felt something crack open inside me. For the first time in months, maybe years. I let myself feel it. The grief. The loss. Not just of Janet, but of the person I used to be before she rejected me. The person who believed love was enough. Clara reached out and squeezed my hand. You are going to be okay, Jimmy. You are stronger than you think. A few weeks later, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Janet. Her voice was small, fragile. Jimmy, I know you do not want to talk to me, but I need to say this. I am sorry. Not just for what happened with Michael and the company, but for what I did to you 7 years ago. You deserved better. You deserved everything. And I was too blind, too selfish to see it. I stayed silent. She continued, her voice breaking. I have lost everything. My family does not speak to me. I have no job, no reputation, no future. And I know that is my fault. But the worst part is knowing that I lost you. Not because of the scandal. But because I threw you away when you were the best thing that ever happened to me. I closed my eyes. Why are you telling me this, Janet? Because I needed you to know, she whispered. And because I hope, someday, you can forgive me. Not for my sake. But so you can move on. So you can be happy. I took a deep breath. I do not hate you, Janet. I did, for a while. But I do not anymore. What you did hurt me. But it also taught me something. It taught me that I do not need anyone's validation to know my worth. I know who I am. And I know what I am capable of. I do not need your apology to move forward. I already have. There was a long silence. Then, she said softly, I am glad. You deserve to be happy, Jimmy. You always did. And with that, she hung up. I stood there for a moment, phone in hand, and realized something. I was free. Not because she had apologized. But because I had let go. 3 months later, Clara and I started spending more time together outside of work. Dinners. Movies. Long drives where we just talked about life. She was easy to be with. She did not carry the weight of the past. She just saw me for who I was now. And slowly, carefully, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I could be happy again. One evening, as we sat by the water watching the sunset, she turned to me and said, You know, you are not the same person you were when you came back to Harrison Enterprises. I looked at her. Is that a good thing? She smiled. It is a great thing. You are not angry anymore. You are not trying to prove anything. You are just, you. I thought about that. She was right. Somewhere along the way, I had stopped fighting. Stopped carrying the weight of Janet's rejection. Stopped trying to be enough for someone who had never deserved me in the first place. And in that space, I had found something better. Peace. I reached over and took Clara's hand. Thank you, I said quietly. For what? She asked. For reminding me that not everyone leaves. She squeezed my hand, her smile warm and genuine. I am not going anywhere, Jimmy. And for the first time in a long, long time, I believed it. Janet had rejected me for richer men, for a life she thought she deserved. And when her family chose me to lead, she panicked, realizing too late what she had lost. But in the end, her rejection had not destroyed me. It had forged me into someone stronger, someone better, someone who no longer needed her validation to know his worth. I had won. Not because I had taken revenge, but because I had taken back my life. And that, I realized, was the greatest victory of all.